Culvers. Goodbye grey skies, hello blue. A juicy, buttery, dairy-laden burger, well worth the journey. The miles are long around here, as long as the Midwest horizon upon them. The frozen custard is a treat, a reward for taking pride in the surroundings. You get out what you put in, and what goes in is some of the finest dairy around. Regular customers know. Culvers knows too. The Midwest's famed manners on display for all to see, dotted along the rolling country hills like the work of a rural Banksy. A blue, gratuitous nod to those involved. High-fiving a cow would be too much. This will do nicely. A thank you goes a long way around here. It's good to see those days aren't numbered. Happy Days. There's more than a passing resemblance to the Wisconsin-based sitcom Happy Days. A wholesome image, a family atmosphere. The communal meeting place of well-mannered teenagers using words like jolly and swell. No swearing, no obscenities. The worst you might encounter is, now listen here, bucko. However accurate this may be, what we do know, or should know, is that Wisconsin has been rocking a ButterBurger for a long time. It's a Wisconsin way of doing things, a worthy tradition. How exactly one prepares a ButterBurger to be authentic, on the other hand, is less clear. From quantity of butter to where and when you should apply it. Craig Culver said regarding the ButterBurger, they had the name, but they didn't know how they were going to make it. The ButterBurger name is a unique selling point for Culvers, and perhaps all part of a cunning plan. Culvers started out in the small Wisconsin town of Sauk City in 1984. From the very beginning, it was an all-in family operation. Craig and Leah Culver, along with help from Craig's mother and father, Ruth and George Culver, opened the doors of the first Culver's restaurant. The Culvers were not new to the restaurant business, far from it. George and Ruth Culver had previously owned a local A&W restaurant, and later the farm kitchen, and having started out in the business at the age of 11, Craig Culver knew from an early age what his destiny would be, and that was to avoid the restaurant business like the plague, and perhaps being a little dramatic. But having seen how hard his parents had worked, with little time off, and he himself having less of a childhood than the Jackson 5, it's no wonder Craig Culver wanted something different. He had gained a degree in biology. On returning home after college, his father asked him to be the general manager of the farm kitchen. Craig declined, but the restaurant business wasn't done and dusted. His sister, Georgia Culver, was living in nearby Madison. Her neighbor, Tom Showers, owned a local McDonald's. Georgia insisted that the two talk about a job, and finally Craig warmed to the idea. But after 4 interviews, yep, that's 4 interviews, Culver's new job prospects were running hot and cold, and potentially going down the drain. Showers finally offered Craig Culver the job, and Culver was off to work with McDonald's. McDonald's proved to be not merely a job, but an education. As many in the fast food business over the years have found, is that McDonald's offers a learning experience that few can rival. The company has been at the top of the industry consistently for well over half a century, for good reason. One of them is the systems that are put in place to maximize efficiency. This includes everything from stock, waste, and labor costs. Hard to learn in a classroom. This hands-on experience would be beneficial for Culver in the future. After 3.5 years, Craig Culver returned with added fervor and a desire to make a go of it in the restaurant business. He visited his mum and dad like a good son should, but on this occasion it was business related. He suggested to them that they buy back the old A&W that the family had owned previously. George agreed. Ruth was blue, more hesitant, thinking she had retired and was done with the business. A family vote was suggested, probably by someone that knew they'd win. It was 2-1. The Culvers were back in town. Father and son worked together running the A&W for another 6 years. When the company was bought by investors, the Culver family moved on to run a supper club named the Ritz for 2 years. In this time, the A&W didn't do too well. The Culvers agreed to buy it back again, having agreed a contract before selling it that meant if anything happened, they would get it back. Something did happen, and the Culvers were back where they belonged. This time, it wasn't A&W over the door, it was Culvers, and the roof was blue again. Different roof. The start of Culver's didn't exactly go off with a bang. People were still unsure at the time as to what ButterBurgers and Custard was, and cars would drive on by. The neighbouring Dairy Queen and Hardee's both were full of parked cars outside, whereas at Culver's there was only 2. And they belonged to Craig and his father George. Things could have been worse. Imagine if they had both travelled by bus. After the initial doubts, Culvers began to grow in popularity and become profitable after 3 years. Customers were now on board with ButterBurgers and frozen custard, and were travelling long distances to get the Culvers experience. This led to the first franchise attempt. It failed. Franchises need to have tight binding agreements usually, that result in consistency of operation. This first franchise didn't have this, and was more of a licensing of name than a true true franchise. Lesson learned, and the second attempt proved to be much more fruitful. What's good about Culvers? They make a frozen custard that differs from a traditional ice cream that has a higher fat and egg content than the alternative. Also, there is less air incorporated in the final product. The result? Something worthy of driving 50 miles for apparently. Swirl in additions like caramel, peanut butter, and pieces of fudge, and 50 miles doesn't seem that far. The ButterBurgers, originally a product of Solly's Grill, established in 1936, was once regional, but the word is out, and this has much to do with Culvers and the restaurant's expansion as anything. At Culvers, butter is lightly spread on a toasted bun, and that's it, like a mustard burger or a ketchup burger. A tad heavy on the marketing, but it still works. What also works is deep frying cheese. In Culver's case, it is fried cheese curds. It's Wisconsin after all, and so cheese is celebrated, and rightly so. If there is a better side served in a large chain restaurant, other than fries, I'd love to know about it. Wisconsin cheese is also used on the ButterBurgers, which is worth mentioning as many competitors seem to view the quality of cheese as a generic afterthought. It doesn't stop there, with George's own chili, made from George Culver's own recipe. According to Craig Culver, George himself ingrained in him the philosophy of not cheapening the product, and his mum Ruth instilled the hospitality that the company says is part of what makes Culver's different today. The service standards are part of the Culver's brand, with please, thank you, and a lot of smiles, being the aim of the game. This has to be real though, otherwise ordering a burger could quickly become like witnessing a hostage video. Fortunately, Culver seems to be a good place to work. It allegedly was not always the case, but the company is doing many things right. One difference that is present, that is not always the case for large chains today, is that Craig Culver is still ever present and appears to run a tight ship. Along with the Culver family that has their name on the door, there is much more emphasis on high standards from a personal reason than a purely corporate spreadsheet approach. That hands-on approach that Craig Culver is known for has served Culver's well thus far, and will be interesting to know how that pans out in the future. This could be a big change down the line, and future franchising might rely on it. Owner-operated franchises are how things are currently operated. A lot of successful franchise systems use this method, and Culver's clearly thinks it works for them as well. A lot of this may be down to learning from the first franchise early on in the Culver's story, and how a restaurant can quickly drift away from the intended brand standards. Franchising a Culver's is a big investment, with the company suggesting that would-be franchisees hold minimum liquid assets of between $350,000 and $600,000, depending on ownership options. With that level of investment, Culver's is looking at a quality over quantity approach to expansion. Culver's also rely on their network of independent farms. These cheese curds don't grow on trees. It'd be an orchard. The farm responsible, local of course, is Legrande's Hillside Dairy, a family-owned operation. This kind of outfit is typical of the kind of supply chain Culver's wants to maintain. How long this lasts with increased expansion of Culver's and the downward pressure on small independent farms, we'll have to wait and see, but hopefully it continues. To drive this home, Culver's began a Thank You Farmers project, designed to support agricultural educational programs. At the last count, around $2 million had been donated to agricultural education, and Culver's painted 4 barns in the Midwest in Culver's blue, with a message of thanks to farmers. I am assuming that Culver's initially went around the local farmers to say thanks, and 4 of them wanted it painting in giant letters with Culver's branding on one of their outbuildings. We might never know. Culver's now has over 740 restaurant locations across the United States, expanding from the Midwest to warmer states. Like a lightly buttered bird following migratory Midwesterners to places like Florida and Arizona, it's not just seasonal snowbirds that can't wait to see Scoopy or Curtis the Curd Nerd on their next visit. Culver's does well with millennials. In a 2018 survey by Restaurant Business Online, Culver's finished 4th in the quick service category. If they keep handing out frozen custards to the next generation, they might just be moving up that ranking. If you are an 11-year-old coming to the end of your shift at a busy restaurant, and you're thinking that a different career move might be in order, hang in there. You never know where the journey might take you. You might need a cunning plan. It might not be an overnight success, and you might have to buy the same restaurant 3 times. But keep going. If all else fails, just add butter to it. Wisconsin butter, of course. All things Culvers. Let me know. Thanks for watching.